Hi, Carol. This is Joyce Taylor Spence. I'm interviewing you today, and welcome and thank you for adding to the oral history collection of the Washakie County Historical Museum and Cultural Center. We have two goals here today. One is to record the history of the graduating class of 1960 and what it was like to grow up in Worland, Wyoming between the years directly before the Second World War and to the time we graduated in 1960. The second purpose is to give insight into potential future listeners to this history or watchers of this history about how growing up in Worland might have affected our adult life. So to get started, Carol, I think we have two questions that everyone gets asked, and then there are a series of other questions that we might get into that might have particular meaning for you. The first question is your name, your full name, and what you might have been called while you were in school.
Carol Jean Woodhams Day, and I really didn't have any nicknames. I was just called Carol.
Now, Carol, how did your family happen to get to Worland and when?
My folks were from Williston, North Dakota. My dad had applied at the Northern Wyoming Daily News as a printer,
And
a
they
pressman
moved
printer.
to work?
And excuse me. And
I'm
he
sorry,
had I missed that.
I was
And
just
he
asking, your dad
had
was there for his job?
Yes, he had applied for the job here and he got it. And he moved here in November of 1941. And Mom was still working as an accountant, and she wanted to finish doing her, helping her employer out. So she wasn't going to come till December. So then, of course, December 10th, and then everybody was having a fit. They didn't want Mom to come on and move down to Worland because she had planned to come about the 24th or whatever of December, because she was also 7.5 months pregnant with me. But she said, no, I'm going down to Worland. And she came, I think it was like the December. She said, I've already sent the furniture, so I'm going. They said, yeah, but what if Willie gets drafted? And she said, I'm going. So she came on, and Dad did not get drafted because he had flat feet. So that's how we ended up here in Worland.
So you were born in Worland?
Yes, at the hospital here, yes. And at that time, I think the mothers had to stay in the hospital 2 weeks after they had a baby. Now you don't even stay in a day practically.
Where did you all live in Worland that from your first memories?
Where did I have a what?
Where did you all live in Worland from your first memory?
I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay. We lived in apartments North 13th Street behind the Methodist Church. And we lived there until I was a freshman, and then we moved to North 13th in a house, North 13th in Washakie.
Well, as you think about these places you lived, what kind of memories do you have as you remember all of those years?
Probably all the kids in the neighborhood, and we played outside. We, yeah, I don't think kids were hardly ever in the house. We, jacks, hopscotch, riding bikes, playing baseball. Just, we were outside all the time. And of course, in the winter, it was ice skating and sledding. There were so many kids that lived around that area. Sharon Smith and the Roys lived across the street in houses. At one time, there was the Nelsons also lived down there. Swans had lived there at one time. And the Fleurs had lived there at one time. And Pappy Lowe, and of course, he had the two daughters. They just lived down the street. Averets didn't live that far away. And then Judy Slaughter lived a couple blocks down on Robertson too. Also, there was Porters and Dean Fredericks and them, but I didn't really run around with them. And our one teacher, Mrs. Pickert, lived on that street too. So I don't know, there was just kids everywhere and always somebody to play with.
Oh, that's a nice memory. What do you remember about you and all these kids in school?
I think we probably just all, by knowing them all when we were younger, you stayed friends with so many. I think our class was very close. And so we just, we were friends with everybody then. But that probably was the beginning of it from when we were very young.
Do you remember special teachers when you all were in elementary school?
I really not that just really that that I really made an impression on me, I guess. I don't know.
What do you think about the when you went into junior high? Did that start making a difference in the way you remember kids?
No, I think I still got along with everybody. What was it? Oh, I was just gonna say when we were in elementary school, the girls, all through school, we always wore dresses. And the only time I think that we wore, pants or anything was like when we went to the mountains. And, we played on the equipment there, but also we played in the dirt all the time. With our hands, we make pretend houses and stuff. And I'm going, wow, nowadays mothers would have a fit because we probably never washed our hands or we were probably very unsanitary. And then one of the things that I did when I was in elementary school, I had to be the dumb one that stuck my tongue on the slide in the wintertime.
Now that is a significant memory.
Whoops.
So did you, what else do you remember about as you turned adolescent and became interested in boys?
I think much of the time, I think I was more friends than, boyfriend, girlfriend type things.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
Did you have a best friend?
And girls or boys, both?
Either one.
Yeah. Judy Slaughter and I played, and we played dolls forever until she moved on to Circle. But we played quite a bit together. And Sharon Smith, lived across the street. So I don't know if they were best friends in junior high. I can't think. I was friends and just I bit with everybody, I think.
What sort of things did your family do together?
Well, my dad loved to hunt and fish, And we spend a lot of times in the mountains, fishing and stuff. And then when a lot of vacation, we would take part of it in North Dakota visiting family. But then we also would go to Yellowstone and we stayed at Fishing Bridge in the little cabins and back. And we did that quite a few different times. And at that time, there was all kinds of bears. You saw bears all the time. So that was fun and interesting.
Okay, well, we were in the middle of, you were telling us about your family vacation in Yellowstone and so on. And then I had asked, do you have brothers or sisters?
I have two sisters. My one sister has passed away. Excuse me, just a minute. Kay is 3 years younger me, and then Patty was 8 years younger than I was.
So you all
Patty
were
was
a family of 5.
Pardon?
I say you all were a family of 5, right? 3 kids and.
Right. Yes. Correct.
So what do you remember about you and your siblings?
We played really good together. When Kay was 5, she ended up having rheumatic fever, and she was in the children's hospital in Denver for probably way over a month. And Patty was just a baby. And so I think sometimes, poor mom, you don't think about it at the time, but she was torn because she had to stay home. And Kay was down there at the hospital by herself a lot because at that time, I don't think you were able to, afford to be staying in motels and stuff. And so one thing, when she was in children's hospital, Roy Rogers came. And so she had her picture taken with Roy Rogers, and they were in the Denver Post. But anyway, probably with her having rheumatic fever, sometimes I think we were jealous of her because she didn't have to do stuff later on in life. But we all got along and, played dolls and did everything else together, and fishing and everything.
It sounds like you had a wonderful family. And I remember when I moved to Worland, you were one of the first people that I met, and I loved being your friend. What do you remember about our high school years?
You know what? I started working at the telephone office when I was 15. So a lot of the times I was working, after school and on weekend. But we still had time, I guess, to do all the other fun things. I remember, the proms. We just really decorated for the proms, and we loved, the parades, and we made the floats. They were not like what kids do nowadays, and I don't know what, we all had a good time.
We did. We did. Do you have any special thoughts about how growing up in Worland might have affected your life as an adult?
No, I can't think of anything really. Close as family, I guess. You just still stay, close with, I guess.
Your family
I was
is
in a lot of. I was in a lot of different things when I was in, school, or like 4-H and Girl Scouts and band and all those things. Church, the church choir, and youth groups and all. Um, and this is something in 4-H at the time I did take cooking and sewing. And then when I had moved away after married, and then when we came back, I started entering stuff in the fair here, just like I did when I was in 4-H. So I have been and worked with the fair, and I've entered sewing and cooking and whatever. And my mother always took flowers, so I take flowers. But now my granddaughter and my great granddaughters, they live here too. And now they have started taking things to the fair. So that was kind of a tradition that went on down the line.
That is wonderful. That is wonderful. Is there anything else about growing up in Worland, and you still live in Worland, that you think is special about that community?
Well, it's a lot different than when we grew up here, because there were so many, so much shopping and things to do. I enjoy the quietness and be able to go to the mountains and stuff. But then sometimes it's kind of boring for me right now. But it's, I don't know.
What ways has it changed? Can you be a little bit more specific?
Um, I don't. There's just, to me, there's not a lot to do for seniors. Well, I guess I'm just not one that really goes out to join. I'm not a joiner, so that's probably partly my fault. So, there's still the seniors. I don't go to the seniors and different things like that. And I don't play bridge. A lot of the, when my friends had played bridge and still play bridge. So.
So it sounds like part of what you're saying is just the fact that the economy has changed so that Worland is not as big or as populated as it once was. Is that correct?
Well, I think it still is populated, but it's probably, there's a lot of younger people maybe moving in too. Yeah, I don't know how to say, yeah. But there isn't, the shopping or anything. If you want to, it closes even Walmart's in Cody, which is an hour and a half. Shopping centers are like in Billings or Casper. So that's hour and a half away. I mean, 3 hours, almost 3 hours away. So, and that makes it harder when you're a senior. I don't like to do everything online.
Right, right. Carol, is there anything else that you think would, if one of your grandchildren or great grandchildren are listening to this interview, that you would like to communicate to the young people who might be listening to our stories?
No, it is a good, place to raise kids, because you don't have all the things. So it is still a good place to raise your kids, and the school system's good. So I don't know. I can't think of anything else off. They still have the sports and all that kind of stuff.
So that would be one of the things you want to communicate, is that Worland is a good place to live and to grow up, even though it might be different than it was when you were growing up.
Right.
Well, Carol, if there's nothing else that you feel you want to add, then I would say thank you very much for your contribution and our discussion. And I'll look forward to talking to you again. And hopefully we can get together again. And I
I
can,
had just a couple little silly tidbits that I found. Mom kept scrapbooks, and she had different articles. And one of them, it was Mom and 3 other women took the first prenatal class at the hospital. And it must have been in 1945 because I didn't remember, these ladies' names, and Patty didn't either. So we're assuming it was like when she was pregnant with Kay. The other ladies' names was Mrs. Martin Dieter, Mrs. Emmett McGarvin, and Mrs. Kenneth Bonds. So that was kind of interesting, the first prenatal class.
that
And then
is
another thing, when I was in Girl Scouts, I went to church camps and 4-H camps and Girl Scout camps. But one time it was at Buffalo, I think it was called Buffalo Bills Girl Scout camp. Edgar Bergen and Charlie put on a show there. And so, and he had his daughter Candace there. And I have her, she signed my little autograph book, and I still have her autograph. So those are just some little tidbits.
Oh my goodness. Now that is a historical, amazing bit of information, because of course most people haven't ever heard of Charlie McCarthy.
Right. So
Oh,
I
that
think
is
that's
so
about all that
interesting.
I.
Thank you for that, Carol. Well, I will turn it over to Kathy at this moment, unless you have something else. We love to listen to your stories, Carol, if you have anything else. Otherwise, we'll say goodbye for now.
All right. It was good talking to you. Thank you.
All right. Good talking to you, Carol. Thank you.
Carol, who was Charlie
Yes.
McCarthy?
You don't remember?
No, I know,
Uh,
but does your granddaughter
oh.
know?
No, probably not. Probably not. No, they wouldn't know. I don't even know if my kids would know for sure.
So who was he?
Pardon?
Who was he?
Edgar Bergen, and then Charlie was a puppet.
And
Yep.
so what kind of character was Charlie McCarthy?
Just, I think, a little boy, wasn't he?
I don't remember very well about him. Was he
Hmm.
kind of a smart aleck kid?
No, I don't think so.
I just want
You
to
know,
interject here.
Sure.
As I
Yeah.
recall, I was at that same 4-H camp, Carol. And
Pardon?
I was at that same 4-H camp when Edgar Bergen and
right.
Candace came. And Charlie McCarthy was a puppet, the wooden head puppet, and his friend was Mortimer Schnurr. Do you remember that?
No, I don't remember
And-
that part.
And Edgar Bergen was a ventriloquist. And this was a very early ventriloquism. And he was on the Ed Sullivan Show several times and had done those things. Well, he told us that Edgar Bergen and Mortimer Schnurr had not been good, and they were in reform school during the summer. And so he put a handkerchief over his hand and pretended he was an old Girl Scout, put lipstick there, and with his thumb bent, he did a whole program with his hand as a marionette or a puppet. And I remembered that just as well as you, and it was fun.
Yeah, see, I don't remember all of it. I remember in the morning, we always had to go out and they put the flag up. And I would look up, and then I fainted one morning because I guess I was still hungry or something. I remember that.
You fainted?
Yeah.
How did you come to?
I must have been right away, but it was probably the altitude and everything, but looking up, yeah.
Was it 4-H camp or Girl Scout camp?
Girl Scout.
Girl Scout. You were talking about playing jacks, and I think you're the only one that's talked about playing jacks. Do your granddaughters
Oh.
play jacks?
I don't know if they have started, if they've done that yet. They're doing hula hoops.
What's a
Yeah,
hula hoop?
and
What's a hula hoop?
you don't know what a hula hoop is.
No, remember, we're
Around.
talking for people in 2050 who won't know what a hula hoop is.
My kids had them too. Well, it's that. How would you describe it, Joni? It's a hoop made out of kind of lightweight plastic, and then you have to wiggle your hips to make it keep going.
And so it goes round and round.
Uh-huh. You're going to have to Google some of these things, Kathy.
No, Carol, I know what they are, but in 2050, people
Oh, okay.
wanting to know what it was like in those days won't know. Because we can all just visualize so easily, like jacks. How do you play jacks? What are jacks?
Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying. A ball, and what did we have? 6 jacks. You had to bounce a ball. First took 1 up, then you had to get 2, and you had to get 3, et cetera, et cetera.
And it was just a matter of hand-eye where you throw out the 6 jacks or 12 jacks or whatever.
Yeah. You'd shake them in your hand and throw them out, and then where they landed. Sometimes they'd be close together, so it would be hard to bounce the ball and pick up one at a time. It's a little tiny rubber type ball.
And so then if they were scattered, it would be hard to pick up several at a time.
Yeah. If you had to and then if you got to 6, then you had to be pretty fast to try to get your whole hand around all of them.
Did they have winners
Yeah,
and losers? Did you have scores? I don't remember that.
And what? Did you have scores?
Did you score? Was it I won 3, you've won 2, or anything like that, or you just shifted back and forth playing?
Yeah, you went back and forth, I think. I think you went till you miss, like if you picked up 3 and you just ended up with 2, then it was the next person's turn, I think.
So in other words, it wasn't
been a
competitive as
time,
much as
Kathy.
it
I
was
don't-
collaborative.
Huh?
So it really wasn't competitive. It wasn't like who's going to win. It was just you would take turns.
No,
Doing-
I think you still want to win. No, I think it was still who could get them, be the first to all get the 6. I mean, you'd take your turn, but till you, the next time you'd still try to get those 3, I think, until you ended up getting the 6, and probably whoever got the 6 first was probably the winner. Yes,
Okay.
I don't remember exactly either.
Okay, you talked about sticking your tongue on the cold slide. How did you get it
Uh-huh.
off?
Probably just ended up just pulling the skin off, probably. It hurt. I was done. Probably 3rd grade, maybe? I don't know what grade it was.
Peggy Steele was talking about getting rheumatic fever when she was 5. And she had to stay flat on her back for a year, missed a year of school. By the time Kay got it, they must have had penicillin shots that they could give her. Do you remember, did she have to lie flat on her back for a long time, or what was it what was involved?
I don't remember. I just know she was down in the children's hospital for over a month. And then she couldn't go to school or kindergarten or whatever it was. I think, anyway, she couldn't, didn't do anything. It was probably for almost a year. And then she did have some, I think, heart damage from it. I can't think what she had. A heart murmur maybe she got from it, I think. But yeah, through the years, and the folks say, well, she couldn't do this, she couldn't do that, she couldn't mow the lawn because she, I'm going, I had to do it all, so I didn't like her for that.
Okay, proms. Joni and I were talking about this the other day about how we decorate for proms. Can you describe some of what we did to the gymnasium?
Oh my goodness, it was just, somehow we lowered, had it, so the ceiling was lowered, and I don't know how, if we had netting or what, and we still put all the crepe paper, so there would be almost a ceiling. I remember one time there was something to the stars, and we had a staircase made up, type.
Stairway,
Kind of going up and-
Stairway to the Stars. I remember that.
Yeah,
there.
junior prom.
Mhm.
We must have
I
put,
don't remember which one.
a lot of work in, like hours and hours.
yeah.
Would we come in on Saturdays and work on it, and after school? I don't remember.
Yeah. Oh, we had, because the way it was decorated, we had to work. And even on the floats, I don't know if they get the kids more, and we had more time to do them. And nowadays, because they're sure nothing like what we did. And the proms, I just went to a couple up here when my grandkids were in, they weren't decorated like we did at all either. So.
What do they do for floats as compared to what we did for floats?
Oh, that one, remember we had what was like a huge swan, that took hours to make it. It took up a whole flatbed truck or something. Now, most of the time, it's just a little short bed truck or a little short thing. And they're just, it's just not like what we did.
What did you do at the telephone company? Were there a number was that a job that a lot of girls got? Notice I didn't say boys.
Yeah.
Probably boys didn't do it.
Yeah. No. And you know what? We never saw the public, and we had, we sat back in that back room, and we still wore dresses there too. We couldn't wear pants. Yeah, there was a lot of us that worked there. Michael did.
Michael Taylor?
Kathy Bull. Yeah, Michael Taylor. Kathy Bull, I think, worked there. Oh gosh. Anyway, there were a lot of us that did, yes. It was good paying.
What would you do?
We had to be, it's hard to explain, but we had the little things, and we'd have to plug in and say, operator, what number do you want, or whatever, So then they'd tell us the number, then we had to take the other one and plug it in whatever and dial that number for them. Nobody, that was long distance, mostly all those were. And then and Sherry, Homer worked there too. When we graduated, we did go down to Casper, and we worked there at the telephone office in Casper for a while. And then she got married in December. And then I stayed a little bit longer down there, and then I came back up here.
Did you start dating your husband while you were still in high school?
I think it was more out of, maybe, yeah, it was after I graduated, yeah.
Because, do you want to sit back a little bit, Carol? We don't see your face.
Oh, are you still recording?
Because your husband had a brother in our class.
Yes, Bill, and then also Linda Collins was in our class too, and Bill and Linda married each other.
So it stayed close.
So there was a lot of kids in our class, and it was a close class.
What do you think? You've been through a lot in the last couple of years. What do you think is some wisdom that you've learned?
See, I'm not good at questions like that. I don't know, Kathy.
Resilience? One step a day?
You just have to stay strong. And I think that, I don't know if you'd say when you're older, you get harder, but you're able to deal with some of this stuff easier than when you were younger, maybe. I don't know.
I don't know, Joyce. What have you learned because of all these things in the last couple of years?
Well, that's a really hard question, Kathy. I think that you can answer it on several different levels for us, each of us personally. I think the COVID pandemic and our own personal problems, whether they be health related, emotionally related, have been compounded enormously by the combination of the COVID pandemic and also the political environment in which we are all living. Whatever one's point of view, it is stressful and difficult. So for us folks who are older, and I think we are all bona fide senior citizens these days, it becomes at once more significant, I think, and then in some ways less significant because we have less life yet to live. Whereas younger people have more concerns, I think, about an uncertain future because their future stretches much further than ours does just by the fact of our age. So I have mixed feelings about it all. Speaking for myself, I don't have any serious physical ailments that I know of right now. And so for that, I'm grateful. Carol, thank you so much for all of your thoughts and remembrances. And I would say to all of you, my time in Worland, even though it wasn't very long, was my best growing up experiences. So I consider Worland my hometown, even though I only lived there a couple of years. So that says a lot about how I feel about Worland.
This is Kathy Haley. It's Wednesday, April 12th, 2023, and I'm speaking again with Carol Woodhams Day. Carol, let's talk a little bit more now that you're feeling better after some surgeries. Let's talk about something that's on our minds right now. This is a time where Russia has invaded Ukraine. It's more than a year now with terrible fighting in Europe, where we have mass killings happening at schools and all kinds of other places in the country, which seems like the country is in horrible shape, unlike any time it's ever happened before. And yet, in our lifetimes, we've experienced a lifetime of Cold War with Russia. We've experienced the Vietnam War when we were draft age, or the boys in our class were. We've experienced the Gulf War, 9/11, the Iraq-Afghanistan wars. We experienced assassinations of John Kennedy and his brother and Martin Luther King. Let's talk a little bit about each of those and what it was like growing up with that. Do you have any memories of growing up with the Cold War and how we worried about Russia maybe bombing us with atom bombs?
It seemed like when we were first married that, you know, it must have been that because we had like when Jim and I were first married, we had a basement and I think we put some water and food down there, maybe. What would I think that I, you know, so we must have, you know, that must have been scared then, you know.
How did Vietnam impact you and Jim? Because he would have been draft age.
He was called to come and get his physical, and at that time they did it in Great Falls, Montana. And he went up, but he didn't pass the physical. I'm thinking that it was because he had flat feet, but I'm not sure. And then I just had found out I was pregnant. So for some reason, they didn't draft him because I was pregnant. I don't remember if we had to get something from a doctor saying I was pregnant. You know, it's many years ago, so I'm not sure on that.
How did he feel about not qualifying for the draft? Was it humiliating because he wanted to go, or how did you feel about it?
At that, I don't think that his family wasn't military, so I'm sure that he didn't feel as much, you know, about going as so many families. That was, you know, what they did, and that was part of their lives. So I don't think that he was really felt humiliated about it, but I'm not sure.
When you look back at, so let's see, so Vietnam was going on, and then we had all the civil rights, and we had the John Kennedy assassination. What was it like for you when John Kennedy was assassinated?
I was living in California at the time, and a salesman had knocked on the door. And he said, "Did you just hear the news?" And I said, "No, what?" And he had told me. And I said, "Well, come in, let's turn the TV on." And so we watched it. And of course, then, you know, being home alone at that time, I was kind of scared because, you know, Jim was at work and you didn't know what else was going to happen. So.
Can you think of, it seems like it was so shocking to everyone that almost every one of us can remember where we were and what we were doing when we heard. Do you think that's true? Do you think that's true of all of us?
Oh, I think so. You know, all the things that came up, I think everybody remembers what they were doing at that time.
I never thought we'd have a president assassinated in my lifetime. Did you?
No. No. No.
And then what about when we kept having the assassinations? So there was Martin Luther King Jr. and Bobby Kennedy.
It just seemed like it was going on and on and on. They're going, what in the world's, you know, the world coming to? And at that time, that's what we were thinking. Now it seems like there's even a lot more worse things happening. And then 9/11 was really, I think that was almost the scariest, I think, to me.
How did you react with 9/11? How did you find out? And then what were your feelings, your reactions?
Well, it was in the morning because we were, you know, in California. And I think my husband had turned the news on, and then we started getting phone calls from the neighbors and all the friends. And, you know, everybody started gathering at everybody's houses, and we're thinking, okay, it happened back there. Now is it going to happen on our coast? And, you know, and I think that we all we kept the kids out of school that day, and you know, and all the neighbors and everybody did too. You know, we were just probably scared to death.
Yeah, it was geographic. We lost a couple of people, a couple of the popular people on staff were accompanying 3 elementary school teachers, each with a student. They were flying to California on that American jet that hit the Pentagon. They were going to go to a week-long oceanography camp that Geographic was doing with NOAA. And it was so personal and so horrible. It was like something I've never experienced before.
Mm-hmm. Yep, it was. And we had just been to New York. I don't remember if it was like 3 or 4 months before that, and been to the Twin Towers and everything too. So yes, yeah, it was. It kind of just really hit you, even if we didn't know. I mean, it was just horrifying. You know, and you just couldn't keep from watching the TV and all the horror and everything. So.
Did you have children or grandchildren or spouses of your children and grandchildren who were involved in the Gulf War or served in Iraq and Afghanistan?
No, I didn't. Some of I think it was my kids' friends did, and I would write letters to them, you know, but otherwise we didn't have family, you know, and any of the war. Well, actually, I had a cousin, and he was in the Vietnam War, and he served 3 terms over there, but I wasn't real close to that cousin, so.
So actually, when they stopped the draft, wars no longer seem quite as close to us
Yeah, probably.
as back when we were in high school and the first years out of high school. That's when people were waiting to see what their draft number was, whether they'd have to go.
Right.
When my brother got called up, he said they just went through, some sergeant went through and said, you, and you are going to be in the Marines. And the draft guys were saying, no, not me.
Oh, I know. I think most of the guys, I mean, some really wanted to serve and go in. You know, there was some kids that were younger than us. I think the class younger. Hargraves. What was his first name? Bruce Hargraves. I think he was a year. I don't remember. It was a year or 2 younger. And I can't remember who it was with him. And he didn't even finish school. And he joined the service. And then, of course, then we lost touch, like Larry Rosenlieb. He was in the service. And I think it really affected him because when I interviewed him, you know, finally got hold of him for a little bit for our book when we wrote that. He said that when he got back, he just went to, I can't remember if he said to the mountains or it was on the coast, and he basically hibernated for, I don't know how many years, basically. So it must have really got me.
Was he in the Army? Was he in the Marines? What was Larry Rosenlieb?
I'm not sure. I don't know if he said in that, the thing we made for our 50th reunion. There's just a little blip in there, and I can't remember if he said what part of the service he was in or not. And his mother probably has passed away by now, so I don't know who, how we could get any more information on him.
Well, it's quite a time we're in. It's quite a time we were in.
Yeah.
And the world keeps spinning.
Yep, it is. we keep thinking, oh, it can't get worse. And then people say, oh, it's not like old times, but yes, we did go through a lot too.
Well, in some ways, it's good that it's not like the old times.
Yeah.
Knock on wood, we haven't had the assassinations,
Yeah.
just mass murders. And I say just being
Yeah.
horrified.
I don't know. I can't imagine. You don't want to send your kids to school almost. Be hard.
Yep.
In small towns.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.